Hello, this is Gary Boomer, founder, visionary, and strategist at BoomerConsulting, and your host today for today's Boomer Briefing, where we take 20 minutes or less to address a topic that's important to you and your firm. Our topic today is visioning strategic planning. I have as my guest Ken Pun, managing partner of the Pun Group, headquartered in Santa Ana, California. Welcome, Ken, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Gary, for inviting me on your podcast here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I think you're a great young managing partner. And I'd just like for our audience to learn a little bit about your background. And why don't you start off by just telling about where you grew up, your background, and how you were interested in and at what age in the accounting profession.
Sure, that is very, very interesting because my background is I originally came from Hong Kong, so it's a country where the colon like it's a British colony when I grown up. Came here when I was 18, attending college here at UC Riverside. Got my degree back in 1999. So at that moment, I already know I really, really like accounting. Even the second year in college, I know that I'm going into accounting school. And UC Riverside do have a pretty good, solid background, solid accounting school and kind of get me prepared for the CPA exam. So I got my CPA exam, finished up, and got my license in 2004. And I started off with a tax firm, a small CPA firm specialized in accounting and like cash service and the and tax services. But unfortunately, I like after walking into the tax service, I know that tax is not really my thing. So I end up like switching firm. I found another CPA firm called Capricci and Larson. They do a lot of governmental accounting and auditing. So I've been with that firm since 2001. So since then, I climbed up my ladder. Coming from a staff accountant, senior accountant, and then make to the partners level at back in 2007. So about like close to 7 years to get to the partners level. Um, and then since then, I've been managing a book of business with like mainly focusing on state local government auditing. And in 2010. The two partners, Gary Capricci and Steve Larson, decided to do their succession planning. So during those 2 years, we actually go through a merger with a regional science firm located in LA. Within the same year, 2010, that regional science firm also merged into a national science firm, and that's why like after 2 years being in a local firm with 50 people, the culture is very, very different. So that's why like giving me an opportunity to think about to start up my own practice. Like back in 2012, I actually take some actions and start my practice. And at that time, we called like we our firm name was called Pun McGeady. And but unfortunately, I found the wrong partner at that time. So that's why we after a year and a half, we changed our name to the Pun Group to service our client. And with this 11 years, we actually still specializing in state local government practice, not only doing the auditing service, but also the client accounting and advisory service too. We are one of the firm where we have successfully navigate the two bankruptcy back in 2012 in United States. So helping the bankrupt cities to get through the audit, working with the lawyer, helping them through it. So we are very proud of ourselves as a small firm like ours. We have the capability and capacity to service those type of clients.
Well, that's a very interesting story. And I had not heard the whole story ever before. I'd heard bits and pieces, but your reason for going in accounting was probably better than my own. I had a twin brother and he wanted to be a veterinarian. So I said, well, let's go at the other end. So I started in accounting and I was inspired and enjoyed that. And my own story there certainly has some similarities. But let's move on to our topic today. And that's really visioning and strategic planning. And I know you've been through that process for several years. So I'd like to have you share with our audience a little about your vision, how you arrived there, and the process that you've gone through to develop and communicate that vision and strategic plan, both internally and externally.
Sure. Very interestingly, like I've been through a couple people firm, sole practitioner. I've been with a firm with 50 people, been with the firm for 200 people, and been with the firm for 2,000 people. So I know all the nuts and bolts running a CPA firm, and then also seeing the challenges. So when we first started back in 2012, we were about like a $1.5 million practice, and with about like 6 to 8 CPA working with us, and a lot of them are still working with me currently as a partner capacity. So since then, I always know every couple $1 million you have a hiccup or challenges that you need to get it over with. So that's why about like 5 6 years ago, we decided to join Alenia Global Network, a independent CPA firm association, and I do believe that being part of a network, we can certainly get some idea and sharing with other firms on what do I need to learn, how can I get help from others, because firms at all size kind of face a lot of similar issue as the firm size like ours. So that's why back in like about like 6 years ago, we decided to join Alenia Global Network. And with that, I participate into a lot of different conferences. Also learn like joining the leadership program, LP6 program, and working with the EWG group, the executive working group. I learned so much from our peers. So within our group, we have about like eight different managing partners from a firm size like I believe our firm size is the smallest. We only have about like 50 people, but all the way up to 250 people firm size. Um, Similarly, we learn so much with each other. We are getting very, very excited about our meetings every year in person, but also at the same time, we do share our thought process, going through some agenda items that we and challenges every other week virtually so that we can share ideas. And then also at the same time, like about like 4 or 5 years ago, I contact Gary, contacting you to help us with our strategic planning, because as a small firm, I don't know exactly how to run a firm because I've never been through a formal training process. So at like during that year, I engaged with Gary and Boomer Consulting to help me to come up with a strategic plan. Since then, like I do all the coaching with Gary, and then also using that information and start doing my coaching session with the rest of my partners. Every year we do have our strategic meeting with the key personnel within our firm, including the partners, the managers, and the directors, making sure that we are all on the same page with our vision. And doing our strategic plan, we hold our people accountable on doing that task to help the firms growing.
Well, I think you've stressed some very important points there. And I would say the power of communities would be number one. It's pretty lonely at the top, and
Mm-hmm.
especially in some smaller firms where you don't have that structure and organization. The second thing that I would say is communication. is very important as you communicate not only internally or externally. Uh, Once you have that vision and plan, it is attractive to clients, it's attractive to people. And then probably you mentioned the coaching, the ongoing coaching. I have to tell you that that's been one thing that I think has certainly separated myself and differentiated myself in that I've been in a coaching program for over 25 years. And it's always good to get the perspective from the outside. And as my coach said, it's easy to get high on your own supply, but it's also good to know and have confirmation that your thinking and thought process is valid, because sometimes in an accounting firm, it's the first reaction is to why we can't do that based on history rather than what's the vision and where we're really headed. So I'd like to take this a step further. You know, you've had a strategic plan or been in an organization that's had a plan. How often do you review that plan, and how do you go through that process?
Well, that is a really, really great question. And the plan is actually on my desktop on a daily basis. So I'm actually reviewing the plan with my people, and I'm using that plan to help my people to do that goal setting session. I believe if we have the goal setting session, do it right with our people, align with the strategic initiative that we talk about on an annual basis, you can actually accomplish a lot faster than any other firms, and everybody will chip in and contributing to the plan itself. So therefore, when I'm doing the coaching session, the first thing right off the bat, I'm actually reviewing the firm strategic plan along with my people so that they will be able to do their own goal setting. They set up their strategic for the year, and then also align with the firm's strategic initiative so that you can actually get help and contributing from the whole entire team.
Well, I think you hit on the key word there, team. I like to say accounting is a team sport today. It's not for the rugged individualist. So I think you certainly hit upon that. You might stress a little bit about that accountability process that you have in place today in your firm and where you think you're headed with that in today's marketplace.
Well, accountability is important, and I do actually hold myself accountable. And meeting with Gary on a monthly basis is very important, so that I can see the note that we talk about on a monthly basis. What is my action plan? I do hold myself accountable on things that I say I'm going to do it. And same thing, I'm holding my people accountable, but still, like I myself being the managing partner slash CEO now, um, definitely I have more time and energy in dealing with the day-to-day operations, because I'm like the last couple of years I kind of like stepping out from the line partner position and focusing more on the business. But the thing was, it's kind of different for our other partners and directors, because they do actually have the day-to-day operations. So they do actually need some help. So instead of like having a robust, a tight schedule for them, you may need to play it a little different with their schedule. But the thing was, you still do the meetings with them for partners level. I do actually hold like have a monthly meeting so that at least I know where I can get help, like where do they need to get help from, so that I can allocate proper resource for them, and kind of help them on the strategic initiative so that they can get to where they are today.
Well, you mentioned accountability, and I think it really starts at the top. It's hard to hold others accountable if you don't hold yourself accountable.
Mhm.
I would also say that the term accountability has probably been overplayed in some firms, underplayed in others. But accountability is really empowerment. And the younger workforce today likes to be have a plan of what the expectations are up front, rather than being told at salary time that they didn't meet expectations.
Yep.
So I know that in your firm, you're dealing with a lot of the same issues that all sizes of firms are dealing with. We could take two or three of those and spend a lot of time, but I want to talk about talent a little bit because it's on everyone's mind. And I know that your strategy with talent to fill some of the positions, not necessarily with CPAs or with CPAs that may not be in your office every day. So let's talk about talent and what you're doing and your strategy there.
Sure. Actually, I would like to think about like we need to think the whole entire pandemic process and the experience that we have to work remotely. Because in the past, like a CPA, we always like, you know what, let's come to the office, let's do everything together. You see the whole entire office full of people. But the pandemic hits us a couple years ago, and people needs to be open minded and work remotely. Even like my clients, like you're not coming to my office and do the audit work. How could that be? Like how are we going to manage the timeline and how are we going to handle the work process? One of the things we like since the beginning of my practice, we already have our network. Everything can be done remotely. So the setup it's remote ready setup. So that's why it can make like our life so much easier. We do not have a lot of papers floating around in our office. So that's why it can get a lot faster. The last couple of years, we do actually see the the capacity issue, the talent issue, retention, recruiting. Seems like the nowadays people's mentality it's more of a work-life balance. So now it's kind of like thinking about how are we going to handle the talent? Can we actually use some of the talent like on a part-time basis? Can we hire some part-time a stay-home mom doing part-time on project basis? And we actually started like a couple years ago with the part-time position. We hired a couple of the stay-home mom, and seems like it works out well for us. And also the last couple of years, the terms um, offshoring it's become more and more often because like you can't really find talent in United States here. So that's why we are looking for talent outside of this country. So at the very beginning, we do contracting. We do use a onshore resource and see if there's any talent that can work part time, working on project base here, and then also start using people in South Africa. And lately, we are using the resource in offshoring in the Philippines, trying to fill out the position that it's hardly defined here in the United States. So that's why it make it a lot better because the people in the Philippines now their work ethics is really great. They most of them that like pretty much every single one that we hire in the Philippines, they do have their CPA license in the Philippines. They work for a Big Four alliance firm in the Philippines. So at the very beginning, we have less and less training on the basic technical skills to the Philippine group. One thing I like to mention, this is a offshoring instead of like a contracting like subcontract to a firm to do the work. So that's why it's very important that we have our own culture. We train our people in the Philippine work. We just do the offshoring and it's our own people doing the work. So they are a team, like they are part of the Pun Grip family here, and we built our culture throughout the whole entire Philippine team. And a couple of weeks ago, I'm able to head out there and meet them in person. They're very excited and like the way that we set it up for them, and they love the culture at the Pun Grip here.
Well, I think you've done three things here. One, you have to have the platform and the processes in place. in order to really leverage the talent that's out there, not only internally, but offshoring or onshoring, whatever you want to do. I know our time's escaped here, and I wish we could talk longer, but I promised to keep this at 20 minutes. So as we leave, would you have any other piece of advice you'd like to share with our audience and how they might contact you if someone wants to get in touch?
Sure. Feel free to contact me at ken.pun@pungroup.com. And then also, the one little tips is be open-minded. What you need to actually look at what the markets will do to you, offshoring, onshoring, contracting it out to another firm. Like a lot of tax work, you can contract it out and offer to another firm to help you. Be open-minded. I think that is one of the recommendation that I highly recommend firms to do is like don't work in the business, work on the business. So it's really the think outside the box, and that would make a big difference to your firm.
Well, thanks, Ken. This has been enjoyable for me, and I'm sure the audience will be able to take one, two, or three suggestions here and leverage them in their own firm. So thanks to you, thanks to our audience, and until next time, think, plan, and grow.